The new Zelda game is finally out, and Link is looking a little drained. Despite all the attention the series has received, Link is hardly the focus. This poor guy has been through so many stressful events, while only sometimes being mentioned in the title, and it's clearly having an effect. With Link always on hero duty, and no voice to fight back, I'm going to speak up for him. And that's why today, we're going to see how fast we can get a heart piece or container in every Zelda game to give Link some extra health and love before completing another daunting adventure in Tears of the Kingdom. Our adventure begins with The Legend of Zelda on the NES. This game is known for its open world, which we'll be taking full advantage of. We begin by speaking with the old man, who immediately reminds Link of his loneliness, but at least gives him a sword. The closest heart container to our starting position is located just 4 screens to our right, behind a bombable wall. But how do we get bombs? Well, we could travel a few more screens to find a shop selling bombs for 20 rupees. However, we could do something even better by taking advantage of item drops. Each enemy defeated increments a counter, and enemies are grouped into 4 specific sets of possible drops and drop rates. Those of Group B can drop bombs at the 1st, 6th, and 8th count, and luckily for us, just 2 screens right of our heart container are 4 blue Octrox which are in Group B. All we have to do is make our way over without defeating any other enemies, take one down, and get the 41% drop chance. After the bombs are obtained, simply run back 2 screens, drop a bomb, and obtain our first heart container. Second up is Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, which certainly helps boost our hero's confidence with the name drop, but being one of the most despised games in the series tarnishes this a bit. We start right in front of Zelda, or Princess Zelda the First. From here, all we need to do is head east into the first cave you see, try to dodge the enemy on the floor and still get hit anyways, then simply head along the beach until we reach the coast, beat a quick stage of air bubbles, and then enter the empty forest patch to find our heart container. Now on to A Link to the Past, another title featuring our hero, and one that actually holds up over time. This run is relatively straightforward, but does feature our first dive into what is essentially a dungeon with Hyrule Castle. Once we are awoken, we head after our uncle into the storm, skipping the chest containing a lantern as it won't be necessary for our purposes. We make our way north to the castle and through a secret passage on the right, where we find our uncle again, who equips us with a sword and shield. From here, we make our way into the halls of the castle, resisting the urge to open another chest that contains the map, and make our way to the dungeon. After beating our first mini-boss, we could team up with Zelda, skip the chest, and backtrack to the entrance. We then head north to the throne room, where we can use our combined strength to open up a secret passage. Okay, so it turns out the lantern is what gives us the strength we need to make it through. So in our second attempt, we grab the lantern and retrace our steps, this time successfully opening the passage. From here, we simply make our way through the unnavigable darkness, only stopping to pick up the key chest, and later defeating the leftmost rat for another key. And finally, after pulling the right lever, we enter the sanctuary, which contains a chest we actually do want, that of course being our heart container. Moving on to our first handheld game, with Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, also acknowledging our hero. And this is fitting, seeing as it's the first game where we'll only be getting a piece of heart for our efforts. Nevertheless, our task isn't too difficult this time. Simply finish talking to Marin and Tarin, head out, and make our way to the beach, passing the classic Link enemy, a chain chomp? Jump down some ledges and use your shield to push through the sea urchin. An owl will interrupt us, but then we can grab the sword, demolish the poor sea urchin, and travel back up to just before the beach, where we touch some grass and make an elegant fall into a well containing our piece of heart. Next up is the introduction to 3D with Ocarina of Time on the N64, which will be our most daunting journey so far. Not only do we need to finish the first dungeon to obtain any solid heart growth, we need to first snag a sword, find 40 rupees, and buy the Deku Shield. But after all that's done, we can make our way over to the Deku Tree, who also looks like he could use some extra hearts. And luckily enough, we will have to deal with Goma inside him before getting ours. The dungeon itself isn't too tricky when we know what we need. Simply climb up the vines and head towards the slingshot. With this in hand, we can make our way to the 3rd level, defeating a big Skulltula and plummeting through a web down to the basement. From here, we will need to make careful use of our Deku Sticks to torch through the puzzles on this floor, allowing us to jump down to the boss level. Simply reflect the Dekus in the order of 2nd, 3rd, and 1st, and head in to take down Goma. This battle absolutely terrified me as a child, but Goma won't be getting in our way today. All we need to do is shoot her eye and slash away before claiming our well-earned heart container. We move on to our second 3D Zelda, Majora's Mask. After getting Grand Theft Horse, we flex our new jumping skills, clearly thanks to the amount of hearts we've accrued so far, before getting exactly what we needed, a new transformation that will lead us to our goal. As Deku Link, we can shoot out of flowers and make our way through the mysterious location, meet up with the masked salesman, and then head out into Clock Town. From here, the heart piece is just within reach, but we first need something worthy of bartering to the nearby business scrub. This requires us to handle a quick task in the bomber's hideout. Simply enter your bomber's code, and then head on down. Is what I would say if this code was static. Instead, the bomber's code has 120 possible combinations, and thus we'll need to get our code the old-fashioned way, by beating up kids. To do this, we first head to the laundry pool and grab the stray fairy on the water before heading to the Great Fairy Spring, where we gain the ability to spit, which we can use to pop the balloon outside and trigger the bomber's minigame. After chasing down each bomber, we receive our code, which we need to memorize in order to proceed onwards. We can now head down to the hideout following along the right path and making it into the observatory. Run up and speak to the professor, who lets us use his telescope to spy on the horse thief. After seeing a tear fall from the moon, this game is literally insane, we can head outside to pick up the moon's tear. And luckily, this tear will be the perfect bartering tool, so we can head back to the business scrub, give him our tears, in order to get what we really want, a lovely piece of heart, before wrapping up the N64 games. Next is a game that I had no prior experience with, Oracle of Seasons. We again start by waking up, but this time to find music and a performer's troupe. After talking to the crew and a cute cutscene of Link really showing how far he's already come, things take a turn for the worst, and we're reminded that there's still a heart piece to be found here. Wait, did this guy literally Tasmanian Devil all of us and then shoot fivers at the captured Din to trap her inside a blue rupee? This game is insane, but in the best ways. We awaken to find the seasons out of whack, another fun feature about this game honestly, and are told to find the Maku tree. But before that, we need a sword, so we head through Horon Village and south to the Hero's Cave, which features some simple block puzzles before obtaining a sword and being conveniently transported outside. We head back down to town and use our new fancy sword and all the love we've collected in order to smack down the gate and meet Maku, whose design I really enjoyed. We wake them up and are gifted a key to the dungeon. And I know what you're thinking, but no, we don't need to complete another dungeon here. All we need to do is grab the dungeon item. So with the key, simply backtrack to where we first awoke and head west to find the keyhole, raising the Gnarled Root dungeon. Now the route itself is pretty simple. All we need to do is progress normally through the dungeon, making sure to skip any unnecessary chests or rooms and head directly toward the mini-boss. These two throw a boomerang back and forth, but the battle ends if you can defeat either of them. I found it easiest to just try and trap one in a corner and quickly take them down. Then we can head left and make our way down to find the Ember Seeds. Now use the rest of our bombs to warp ourselves back to the start of the dungeon and head back to town. Just to the left of Maku, we can use our Ember Seeds to burn down the bush and grab our heart piece. Seasons was honestly a fun game already, and I'll definitely need to come back and finish it, but for now, we'll move on to its accompanying game, Oracle of Ages. This game is known for its focus on puzzles, but I can tell you right now, this won't be apparent in our time. However, we do get to see another cute cutscene preluding an ominous event that leads to the disruption of time. And after all this, we have a relatively straight shot to our heart piece. All we need to do is make our way to the portal we just saw. Simply head down to Lina City and north into the Hero's Cave, leading us to this game's own version of the Maku tree. This encounter, though, ends much darker than Season's counterpart, with Maku disappearing due to shenanigans in the past. After this, head right one screen to find the portal, which sends us back 500 years for our heart piece. From here, we can head through the past Lina village and down to the Black Tower, outside of which we can see our heart piece, blocked off by some rocks. Luckily, all we have to do is go inside and speak with another construction worker who gives us the shovel. We head back outside, dig up some rocks, and pick up our heart piece. Moving back into the console games with Wind Waker, a 3D Zelda game I'm excited to play, although this trip will be similar in length to the other 3D games. Starting on the beautiful Outset Island, we can swim over to our house, receive some classic clothes, and swim back to the lookout to scope out some more plot. This gives us the chance to swim back and obtain a sword after showing off the new skills Link has acquired thanks to our ever-increasing heart totals. With this sword in hand, we can make our way up to the forest at the top of the island, quickly meet some pirates, and head back out only to have this game's tragic event occur, Link's sister being stolen. In order to save her, we must head out with the pirates to the Forsaken Fortress after saying goodbye to our poor grandma. But she has nothing to worry about, as we will be getting our heart piece very soon. Upon hitting the sea, we simply need to show off some more new skills before being launched at the fortress, which is actually perfect, as this is exactly where we need to be. We simply sneak our way past the spotlights and have a straight shot to the piece of heart. Next, we have a Game Boy Advance entry with the Minish Cap. This journey is pretty simple, however there are still a few surprises. We start out much more akin to a Pokemon game, waking up but heading downstairs to meet with Zelda and Master Smith, who gives us a sword to deliver to Hyrule Castle. Zelda then leads us to the festival in town, where we must follow her around before the worst event of the journey so far takes place. Zelda has won a prize, able to pick from 3 options: a full heart container, an orange rupee, or a tiny shield. And as you might have guessed, Zelda does not decide to take the heart container. No. Instead, she chooses the shield, even despite the merchant's advice to pick anything else. And after witnessing this, Zelda generously gives us the shield before we're able to begrudgingly continue our journey. We run north to find another business scrub who tries to get back at Zelda for us before making our way to the castle. We drop off the sword and start watching an award ceremony, which ends up being cut short by the champion BotW revealing their evil intentions. We try our best to help Zelda with the tiny shield, but it sadly wasn't enough, and Zelda is turned to stone. Link awakens to the terrible news and is tasked with helping break the curse, with our first lead being at the Minish Woods, right where we need to be headed. Roll on down through Lone Lon Ranch and head across the bridge into the woods. After following the path for a bit, we'll see something that clearly needs help. Luckily for Link, we can forget about this for today and roll right on over to our piece of heart. Heading back into 3D space with Twilight Princess on the GameCube and Wii, where we are greeted with the best new feature so far, skipping cutscenes! You heard that right, and that's not the only thing we'll be skipping, but first we still have a few tutorials to handle. We make our way over to Ordon Spring to find Epona, ready to aid us in our journey, and ride into Ordon to herd some goats. It looks like these goats might not be the biggest fans of Link, but regardless, we finish the job, and with that, already the last tutorial we need for this run. So we wake up the next day and skip over the kids to go grab the most important item of this run, a rock. I'm not kidding. If we take this rock further down the road, we can use it to perform a little trick from the speedrunning community known as gate skip. By dropping the rock in front of the gate and side hopping, we can get a little boost and roll bonk our way through the gate. All we have to do now is run across, call up Epona for a ride, and pick up the last item we need, a lantern. This time we actually will use the lantern for one of its intended purposes, burning down the cobwebs in the cave ahead. Then we make our way into Faron Woods and solve the quick torch puzzle, ignoring the chest at the bottom, and opening the one above to find our heart piece, making Twilight Princess the quickest 3D Zelda so far. We now head on to a new console, the DS with Phantom Hourglass, which takes place immediately after Wind Waker, although I don't think we settled things over there. Anyways, if you aren't familiar with this game, then you might be wondering how the touchscreen is used, and you may not be happy about the answer, being that it's how we control Link. However, this game and its successor have gotten a lot more love over the years, and I'm excited to see how they fare for us. In terms of hearts though, this game is back to the old style of heart containers only, but at least Link will be getting something extra for his troubles. We start the game by working with an old man and showing him that we can count to 7 in order to obtain our sword. Now's probably the right time to mention that both the sword and rolling are controlled on the touchscreen, which is a little awkward to start, but I imagine you get used to it over time. Using our sword, we can get to the eastern side of the island, where we can find Linebeck, a ship captain who could take us out to sea. However, he's currently trapped in a temple that also contains a sea chart we'll be needing. So after dealing with all of that, we're a little tired and take a quick nap to speed up our escape, making our way back to town and then out to sea with Linebeck. We can hop on over to Ember Island where we unlock the Temple of Fire, which, you may have guessed, must be completed for our heart container. It isn't too bad though, and after making our way through a couple rooms, we obtain the boomerang, which has a unique touch in Phantom since you draw its path of travel. From here, we progress forward, solving a few puzzles with our new tool until we find the boss key. These games have another, let's say, interesting mechanic where you must carry the boss key to its destination. You can speed this up by throwing if you're skilled enough, but I'll take the safe route and make our way over to the door. All we have to do now is defeat Blaz here by grouping together its 3 pieces and then attacking before getting our first DS heart container. Rolling right on to the second DS game, Spirit Tracks, which shares much with Phantom Hourglass. As such, we are in for another trek to unlock the first dungeon, beginning with a trip toward Hyrule Castle as we've seen before. This time we travel by train though, one of this game's features. I had fun during my time on the tracks, but I could imagine it becoming tiresome. Anyways, after making it to the castle, we need to meet up with Zelda to help us unlock this first dungeon. So we sneak her out of the castle by using our new set of control options on the touchscreen and head out, where we get interrupted by a set of events that leave Zelda as a spirit. No worries though, as this return trip to Hyrule lets us grab the Spirit Flute and a sword, which we'll need to complete our mission. But first, we have to make a quick stop at the Tower of Spirits, learn that Zelda can possess suits of armor, badass, and obtain the map we need to head towards the mysterious Forest Realm. So we take a spooky train ride and find the Forest Sanctuary where we can solve a few more puzzles before meeting the Sage of the Forest. The only way they let us into the Forest Temple is if we jam out together first, which sounds like a fair trade. From here, we can take one last train ride to the Forest Temple and start working our way to a DS exclusive item, the Whirlwind. With this, we can aim and literally blow into the mic to blow away poisonous gas and solve other puzzles. After working through the rest of the dungeon, we deal with another boss key transport before taking on Stagnox. Simply use the whirlwind to blow at its beetle butt, and then blast some blue shell looking slugs at it in order to claim our final dungeon-related heart container. Moving on to a game I am more familiar with, Skyward Sword. I don't have the HD version, so I had to bust out my Wii U for this one, but at least it will let us see how the original version treated Link. And this led me into our first issue, which is that cutscenes are unskippable, unless you have a beaten file, which I don't. But that's fine. We'll just try to make up for lost time by quickly making our way around Skyloft and avoiding any potential distractions. We eventually locate our missing loft wing and can take to the sky, doing our best to breeze through the rest of the flight tutorials. After this, we finally meet Fi and obtain the Goddess Sword before heading for Faron Woods, where we know there must be a heart piece waiting for us. We land in the sealed grounds and watch some more lore before using whirlwinds without blowing into our DS in order to make our way into the woods. Here, we can run past some bokoblins attacking a Goron. Okay, so we have to help the Goron, but then we run past some bokoblins attacking a Kikwi. Okay, so we also have to help the Kikwi too, but then the rest of the woods unlock and we can simply climb up this ledge. So at this point, I realize some of the pains of Skyward Sword. But nevertheless, we simply uncover the Kikwi and can have a quick chat before we make our way back to that ledge and across a tightrope in order to get our heart piece. Now onto the successor to A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS. This game is both a gift to A Link to the Past lovers and our heart run, as its open-endedness gives us a great opportunity. After a brief introduction to saving and the blacksmith, we're able to head to the northwest end of Kakariko Village, grab a Kuko, and fly our way into the cave that otherwise needs the Power Glove to access. Inside, we dodge some ropes, didn't know they were called that, and grab our heart piece with the shortest time since our last Link game, Link's Awakening. Second to last is Breath of the Wild, which likely brings us the most options so far. No matter what path we choose, we'll have to complete the Great Plateau's 4 shrines and cash that in for a sweet heart container, not stamina, at the Temple of Time. As most of you probably know, despite being an incredible game, Breath of the Wild is filled with game-breaking glitches. So in order to keep some of the adventure's integrity, I will not be using any sort of clipping, but will be utilizing a few staple tricks and speedrun routes, but with a few safety nets and final changes to fit the mission. We begin by showing off our most important new skill, and the first trick, whistling. By combining whistling with sprinting, we can essentially ignore our stamina. Thus, we head off towards the first shrine, picking up an axe, some snacks, and arrows before stealing both a shield and bow. Once we raise the Great Plateau Tower, we'll utilize our second trick, fall damage canceling, by initiating an item throw and swapping equipment before hitting the ground. I will leave a link to both the speedrun I studied for our run and the category on speedrun.com if you want to learn more. Anyways, we make it to the first of 4 shrines, where we obtain magnesis and what essentially amounts to a heart piece in a spirit orb. After that, we gain the ability to teleport and head back to the Shrine of Resurrection in order to begin our journey into the mountains. Here, the cold will be our worst enemy, but thanks to our handful of snacks, some sick snowboarding skills, and plenty of whistling, we make it to our second shrine where we obtain Cryonis and our second spirit orb. And although we need to brave the cold again, Link has certainly earned a proper meal after all of this, so we grab some meat from the nearby camp to help with the cold, then use a combination of snowboarding and whistling to make it to the third shrine where we obtain Stasis and the second to last Spirit Orb. Now we can take advantage of our Stasis abilities to bring us down closer to the final shrine. From here we could take just a quick run or abuse Stasis with any of the surrounding trees to make it to the last shrine and the bomb rune. We could speed up this trial by swapping between bomb types after detonation and grab our last Spirit Orb. All we have to do now is shoot the inactive guardian so its cutscene won't trigger, and we can make a final sprint to the Temple of Time where we swap our hard-earned orbs for the much more important heart container. And finally, we are on to Tears of the Kingdom, where Link's hearts were literally drained away, but that's okay since we have already earned so many to compensate for this loss. And I know you might be wondering about the tricks, but Tears of the Kingdom doesn't appear to share the exact same tricks as Breath of the Wild, so we'll simply just do our best to make quick work of the 4 shrines again required in order to pick up a heart container. But before any of that, make sure to pick up a shield and sword from the enemy outside the Temple of Time. Then we can head over to the first shrine and use Link's new Ultra Hand powers to ride on down to the first shrine collectible of this game, a Light of Blessing. From here we can head south toward the next shrine, being careful of fall damage, using some shield jumps, and grabbing the bow. After making an awkward boat and taking a few cheap hits, we arrive and gain the power of fusion. Using this, we can make some lovely combinations, including flame arrows to get the required key before grabbing our blessing. We are then gifted a tool that's going to come in handy with our next insane contraption that will then allow us to get up higher to another shrine in a cold region. Luckily, the cold won't be nearly as bad, as we can pick up some peppers near the campfire on our way and cook some food to keep us warm, which wasn't an option without some major sidetracking in Breath of the Wild. So after we enjoy our meal, we can slide and climb our way to the next shrine without any problems. Here we gain another busted ability in Ascend, which does much more than that. It allows us to ascend and phase through platforms overhead. Thus we make quick work of the trial, grab our blessing, and then, no joke, air surf our way back to the Temple of Time to see what's going on. Inside, we gain the ability to reverse time, but are then teased by our heart container since we're down the last blessing. So we quickly warp off to a location near the final shrine, use the Ascend ability to make it there in no time. Then by taking advantage of our new time powers, we can ride some waves and grab our final blessing. And all we have to do now is head back, hand them all over, not even be given an option for stamina, because even the game knows what Link needs most. And that's how fast you can get a heart piece or container in every Zelda game, coming to a total of 10¼ hearts over 5 hours, 47 minutes, and 44 seconds. Here's a recap of each game's time. We had some quick runs, and some much longer runs, plus I am in no way an expert at any of these games, but I think we did a great job showing Link how much we all care while preparing him for future adventures. Shout out to Scooty TV for inspiration on the video format. And thanks so much for watching. Let me know what other runs you might like to see next.